Hi, my name is Elise, and today I'm going to talk about environmental legislations, laws, and policies. This is presented by me, Jalis Jahanzeb. The contents of today's discussion are the need for environmental laws, rules, and regulations, the origin of these policies, rules, and regulations, the national context of these acts and regulations, pollution-related acts and regulations, coastal environment and wetlands related policies, acts and rules, waste management, etc. So, what is an environmental legislation? An environmental legislation is actually a collection of laws pertaining to air quality, water quality, the wilderness, endangered species, and other environmental factors. The umbrella of environmental legislations covers many laws and regulations, yet all work together, all work towards a common goal, which is regulating the interaction between man and the natural world to reduce the threats of environment and increase public health. The origin of the environmental acts, regulation, and policies can be found from the National Environmental Policy Act (NEPA) of the United States. Of a policy was framed with an intention to encourage productive and enjoyable relation between man and his environment to promote January 1st, 1970, to promote efforts which will prevent or eliminate damage to the environment and biosphere and stimulate the, the health and welfare of man, to enrich the understanding of the ecological systems and natural resources important to the nation. The national context of environmental policy. In Indian Constitution, two articles related to environmental protection are present. Article 38A, directive principle of state policy, which states the state shall endeavor to protect and improve the environment and to safeguard the forests and wildlife of the country, and Article 51A subsection G, fundamental duties of citizen, which states it shall be the duty of the citizen of India to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, river, and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. This gives us the baseline for environmental policy in India. Now we'll start with the basic acts in India. Moving on, the the Water Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1974 and amendment in 1988. The act vests regulatory authority in state pollution control boards to establish and enforce effluent standards for factories. The act grants power to state pollution control boards and central pollution control boards to test equipment and to take samples for the purpose of analysis. The Water Cess Act was passed to generate financial resources to meet the expenses of the central and state pollution boards. The Act creates economic incentives for pollution control and requires local authorities and certain designated industries to pay cess or tax for water effluent discharge. The central government, after deducting the expenses of collection, pays the central and state boards such sums as it seems necessary. To encourage capital investment in pollution control, the Act gives a polluter a 70% rebate of the applicable cess upon installing effluent treatment equipment. The Air Prevention and Control of Pollution Act of 1981 and amendment in 1987. To implement the decision taken at the United Nations Conference of Human Environment held at Stockholm in 1972, Parliament enacted the Nationwide Air Act. The main, the main objectives of this acts are to improve the quality of air and to prevent, control, and abate air pollution in the country. Important provisions of this act are given below. The Air Act is similar to the Water Act of 1974. The Air Act expanded the authority of the central and state pollution boards established under the Water Act include to include air pollution. Under the Air Act, all industries operating within designated air pollution control areas must obtain a consent or permit from state pollution boards. Now moving on to the environmental Environment Protection Act of 1986. In the wake of Bhopal gas tragedy, the Government of India enacted the Environment Act of 1986. The purpose of this act was to implement the decisions of the United Nations Conference on Environment of 1972. The decisions relate to the protection and improvement of human environment and prevention of hazards to human beings or other living creatures, plants, property. The act is called an umbrella for legislations designed to provide a framework for central government coordination of activities of various central and state authorities established under previous acts such as the Water Act and the Air Act. In this act, main emphasis is given to the environment, defined to include water, air, land, and interconnected things which include water, air, and other living creatures such as plants, microorganisms, and other property. Environmental pollution is the presence of pollutant defined as any solid, liquid, or gaseous substance present in such a concentration as it may be or may tend to be injurious to the environment. Moving on. The ozone depleting substances rules and legislations. The, these rules set the deadlines for phasing out various ozone depleting substances besides regulating production, trade, import, and export of ozone depleting substances and products containing ozone depleting substances. Use of CFCs prohibited after 1st January 2001 except for essential use. Other ozone depleting substances such as carbon tetrachloride and methyl chloroforms and CFC for meter dose inhalers can be used up to 1st January 2010. Further, the use of methyl bromide has been allowed up to 1st January 2015. Since HCFCs are used as interim substitute to replace CFCs, they are allowed up to 1st January 2020. Moving on, some more pollution control acts in India, Pollution Control Act and the Clean Air Act of 1970, 1977, 1990. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act of 1976, 1992. The Comprehensive Environment Response, Comprehension and Liability Act of 1992. The Noise Control Act of 1972 and 1992, the Safe Drinking Water Act of 1974, the Federal Water Pollution Act of 1990, the Toxic Substance Control Act of 1992, the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act of 1972, the Pollution Prevention Act of 1990. These are some of the pollution control acts in India. Now, moving on. Coastal Regulation Zones or CRZs, the coastal stretches of seas, bays, rivers, and backwaters which are influenced by tidal action are declared as Coastal Regulation Zones or CRZs in 1991. India has created institutional mechanisms such as National Coastal Zone Management Authority and State Coastal Zone Management Authority for enforcing and monitoring of the CRZ notification. These authorities have been delegated powers under Section 5 of the Environmental Act or Environment Protection Act of 1986 to take various measures for protecting and improving the quality of coastal environment and preventing, abating, and controlling the environmental pollution in such coastal areas. The Coastal Regulation Zone has been classified for the purpose of regulation of permitted activities. CRZ1, ecologically sensitive area and the area between the HTL, the high low tide, and the LTL, also called the low tide line. No new construction is permitted in this area except for some specified or specific essential activities such as atomic energy plants and defense requirements facilities or facilities which are required for disposal of treated effluents and other port related water activities. CRC2, the area that has developed up to or close to the shoreline, which includes the designated urban areas that are substantially built up. Buildings permitted only on the landward side of the existing authorized structures as defined in the notification. CRC 3, The areas that are relatively undisturbed and those which do not belong to CRC1 or CRC2, which includes mainly the rural areas and those not substantially built up with designated urban areas. The area up to 200 meters from the HTL is earmarked as no development zone. No construction is permitted within this zone except for the repairs of for the repairs to the existing authorized structures. CRZ4. The activities impinging on the sea and the tidal influenced water bodies will be regulated except for traditional fishing and related activities are taken by local communities. No untreated sewage, effluents, pollution from oil drilling shall be let off or dumped. Waste management. The solid waste management rules of 2016 are applicable beyond municipal areas and included urban areas, census towns, notified industrial townships, etc. Focus is now on the segregation of waste at source, responsibility on the manufacturer to dispose of this sanitary and packing wastes, user fees for collection, disposal, and processing from the bulk generator. It has also been advised that biodegradable waste should be processed, treated, and disposed of through composting or biomethanation, which within the premises as far as possible, and residual waste shall be given to waste collectors or agency as directed by the local authority. These promote the use of compost, conversion of waste into energy, revision of parameters for landfill location and capacity. These rules for state treatment of legacy waste prescribe bioremediation and biomining in all open dump sites and existing operation dump sites. More acts and rules in India. The Forest Conservation Act of 1980, amended up to 1992, the Forest Conservation Rules of 1981. Number 2, Mines and Minerals Act of India, 1957, and the Mines Conservation and Developmental Rules of 1988. Number 3, the Ancient Monuments and Archaeological Sites and Remains Act of 1954. That was all. Thank you very much.